As an independent candidate, my name doesn't automatically appear on the ballot no matter how many millions of people support me in the polls. Party officials wrote our current rules to protect the two-party system. They designed them to prevent independent candidates like me from offering voters an alternative to the failed leaders of the past. And they're especially draconian in states with the most electoral votes, states like California and Texas. This is a quagmire that I will help reform once I'm in office, but for now, my campaign has got to work within the rules and find a way to overcome each of the hurdles that they constructed to keep you from voting freely in November. In many states, the law provides for two methods of getting on the ballot. First, you can do it as an individual candidate, or second, as the nominee of a new party. Each path requires a different number of signatures depending on the state. In most states, it takes fewer signatures to put an individual candidate on the ballot, but in 6 states, the signature threshold is lower to put a new party on the ballot. California, for example, requires 219,000 signatures to put an individual on the ballot, but a new party wins ballot access with only 75,000 party registrations. That's still a big lift for most people, but we already have more than 70,000 supporters signed up in California. And I know we're going to blow their numbers out of the water. That's why our campaign has now filed paperwork for new parties in California, along with Texas, North Carolina, Mississippi, and Delaware, the other states in which this same math holds true. Now, you might be asking, is this a political party in the same way that the Democrats and Republicans are parties? Not even close. Our founders warned us that political parties would become breeding grounds for corruption and corporate cronyism. That's why I chose a name for my party that doesn't even include the word party. It's a name that encompasses all of us out there demanding our country back. I told the bureaucrats to call us We the People. These are the first 3 words in the United States Constitution, and they symbolize that our government draws its power from the citizens. This isn't a party, it's a movement. And it doesn't belong to Washington, it belongs to you. This movement will allow us to stand toe-to-toe with the establishment machine and remind the elite few that America is still governed by the powerful many. The corrupt two-party system has held back our progress. It's failed our families. It's put corporate corruption on steroids. If you want to bring back free choice in our elections, you can go to our website and find out how you can help put my name on the ballot.
Straight question. Do you believe that Joe Biden is fit to be president of the United States?
Well, I think we've reached a time where it's no longer character assassination to ask legitimate questions about his competency. There are so many decisions that require nuance, that require complex levels of thinking, and that those kind of issues are coming at you many times a day. There are entrenched interests and special interests in government that actually benefit from having a president who is not completely competent. Their power increases as a president's cognitive power decreases. I'm glad that he stood up there and answered these questions today. I think he needs to participate in the debate so that everybody can judge it. I don't think either in the Trump case or the President Biden's case that a court or the Justice Department ought to be able to make those decisions about his competency. But I think that is a choice for the American people, and that the president should respect the American people and respect our stature around the world by coming out and having a vigorous debate about this and other issues.
Democratic insiders are starting to panic about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s third-party presidential run, and they fear that he could act as a spoiler for President Biden that leads Donald Trump to being reelected. First of all, I don't buy that. This is, to me, if I look at the entire Bobby Kennedy story, it is the worst abuse of democracy I've ever seen in my life, the way that this guy's been handled. Now, full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. We've known each other a lot of years. We've tried cases together. I think he's a good candidate. But what's happening is you have all of these Democrat insiders who, rather than facing the facts and are saying the American public is tired of Biden, they're tired of Donald Trump. Kamala Harris scares the hell out of them. They can't see her as stepping into the role of president. They see all of this happening. The polls are overwhelming. The narratives are overwhelming. But nevertheless, they're doing these little, I call them the Democratic flying monkeys. This Michael Starr Hopkins, he's a Democratic operative and a political commentator. They have these flying monkeys all over the place. And MSNBC puts them on, CNN puts them on. And you know, you would think by the time it's over with, as you're listening to his story, you'd think the guy's insane. He's anything but insane. He's a challenge right now. He's a serious challenge.
Well, see, what bugs me about stories like this is when you have all these Democratic strategists, because this, article from The Hill talks to multiple, and they all say the same thing, like, oh, we're so worried he's going to help Trump get elected. But okay, listen, that's a possibility, sure. But your anger, to me, is directed in the wrong spot. If you're mad that somebody could cost your guy the election, shouldn't you be mad at your guy? Shouldn't you be more concerned as to, hey, why is our guy losing support to this person? What can we do differently? I mean, you're a so-called strategist, so come up with a strategy to win the voters back.
Yeah.
And nobody ever wants to look at that side of it with the strategists.
Let's blame. Let's call names. It is a childlike mentality that you're seeing coming out of the Democratic Party right now. We'll see it soon with Republicans too. But it's this, the American public, the numbers, 70% of Americans are not satisfied with either Trump or Biden. When have we ever seen that? And nevertheless, you have, again, these flying monkeys that have all they know is Democratic politics. They started right out of college, they were a staffer, and then they moved. All they can think of is what I call headline news, headline thinking. And they pick up the headline thinking instead, and they ignore the realities taking place around them.
But here's the thing. There's a lot of people, both actually on the left and right, who say he's won me over. Mm-hmm. So if you're a strategist, you have to come up with a strategy to say, all right, where is my candidate failing? And that's what drives me crazy about both the strategists on the left and the right. None of them ever actually want to come up with a plan or come up with an idea.
Just criticize.
The stories we talk about every week with pharmaceutical prices out of control, housing prices out of control, homelessness, those are things, inflation, that Biden and his strategists should be meeting about and saying, okay, what's the plan? How do I address this? How can we move forward legislatively or executively to do these things and show the people that we mean business? You do that, and suddenly that 70% number isn't going to be 70% anymore, but they won't come up with solutions.
Well, and the worst thing about it is they interfere with the democratic process. Okay, so what's he having to do? He's having to go state the latest thing is We the People Party, that he has to come on as a dependent. He has to do that state by state. Well, New Hampshire only needs 3,000 signatures, so you can do that state by state. Some of the states require a lot more signatures, but their fear about a three-way race is real.
He has every right to run for president. Anybody that fits the criteria has a right to run for president if they want to.
That's right.
And you do not get to be angry if that happens.
And what you want to say is, why can't people carry on a conversation like you and I do? We've known each other for 25 years. I'm delighted you're saying, look, I'm all for Biden. Fine, that's your right to do it. And you talk and say, Pap, here's why I'm for Biden. It's not a screaming match. I'm not calling you names. You're not calling me names. It's a discussion. Yeah. But the damn Democrats and Republicans have become so tribal, they can't even have a discussion with friends where they're not yelling. I mean, we will get comments on this segment, I promise you. Why didn't you beat Pap Antonio down? And Pap, why didn't you beat Farron? Because it's called intelligent conversation. Right. And that has become a thing of the past. And the Bobby Kennedy discussion pretty well proves it.
RFK Jr. could move from being an independent candidate to potentially joining ranks with the Libertarian Party. Now, during an interview on CNN, RFK said it was, quote, something that we're looking at when asked if he was still pursuing that avenue to get on the ballot. Let's watch.
Is it possible that you will seek, as you are running as an independent, you will seek still to be the Libertarian candidate, which would assure you getting on all 50 state ballots?
That's something that we're looking at. We have a really good relationship with the Libertarian Party. I'm going to be speaking at the California Libertarian Party convention. I think it's next week or maybe a couple of weeks, and then we're talking about me speaking in New York.
Now, as the independent candidate weighed his options on how best to get to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he also revealed in a separate interview with News Nation that the Trump team had reached out to him to discuss a potential VP slot, but that he turned down that offer. RFK Jr. told News Nation, quote, "I would not take that job. I'm flattered that President Trump would offer it to me, but it's not something that I'm interested in."
RFK also had some choice takes for his younger supporters. Lock your parents in a room and force them to listen to Joe Rogan. Let's take a listen.
What we're finding is if they, the young people are getting their information from long-form interviews, from podcasts, from other alternative interviews. So they're doing critical thinking and they're not locked into these orthodoxies. And somehow, if you're young and you have parents, you need to lock them up somewhere and make them listen to a Joe Rogan podcast.
So interesting. Apparently, RFK Jr. says that not Trump himself, but the Trump surrogates got in touch about a VP slot, and he turned them down.
I'm not especially surprised by that. This is a man, I feel like this has already been memory hold, a man who was fully running as a Kennedy Democrat as of October.
Yeah.
The liberals are characterizing him as MAGA and right-wing and all of those things, but I do think it ignores kind of a core part of who he is, an environmental lawyer for 30 years.
Oh, you say you're not surprised that he would turn it down?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying you're not surprised that he got offered.
No, I'm not surprised that he would turn it down. He's a Kennedy Democrat, who's an environmental lawyer for 30 years, and who has, as part of his platform, canceling student debt. I mean, he doesn't tick all of my boxes as a progressive, but his weird sort of charm is that there is a kind of a grab bag for everyone, but that grab bag does still have a lot of more left progressive items in it that frankly appeal to a lot of independents, but would not be a good fit alongside Donald Trump.
So he had conversations with the Libertarian Party back in the summer when he was still running as a Democrat within the Democratic primaries against Joe Biden. And there was a lot of speculation about him becoming the Libertarian Party candidate. He met with Libertarian Party leadership. We've interviewed Angela McArdle, who's the chair of the party, on the show before. She is, I would characterize her as very enthusiastic about him in general, happy to see, his opposition to COVID mandates, and she thought maybe he was coming just more fully into the Libertarian coalition writ large. Then obviously he decided to run as an independent, not specifically for the Libertarian Party, and he did get, obviously he's gotten criticism from the left on his Israel stances, but he did get criticized by many libertarian accounts as well. The Libertarian Party Twitter account criticized, actually invited his anti-interventionist supporters to abandon him and join the party. So if they're still talking, it is interesting. From his standpoint, this would make total sense that he said, I'm going to run as independent, and has looked at getting ballot access in all the states, which is extremely difficult. It is so difficult to do it. I'm sure Cornel West is figuring out the same thing. If you're attached to a party like the Libertarian Party or the Green Party, they already have access. They're already on the ballot. So there's some tactical reasons it makes sense to do that. So I wonder if he's seen the process and decided that if he really actually does want to be on as he's sworn he will be on the ballot in all the states, maybe the Libertarian Party is looking more appetizing after all.
Well, I would say this. Unlike Cornel West, RFK Jr. does have the benefit of a multi-million-dollar super PAC that is aiding him in the process of getting ballot access. I mean, some states are relatively easy. Some states are very relatively more difficult because of the number of signatures you need to get. The signatures are challenged. You got to do multiple rounds and over and over and over again. But it's not, I think, a mysterious process. It largely is elbow grease and manpower. Can you get enough people out on the streets with clipboards, collecting the signatures that you need, and do it quickly enough to get the process validated before election time rolls around? And so, I'm not exactly sure. It'd be interesting to hear from some of his surrogates about how that process is going. But it's not clear to me that he needs the Libertarian Party in the way that I would argue Cornel West. It's looking increasingly like he very much would benefit from an association.
But the
with
work's
Green
already
Party.
done. You could spend that time, money, and effort
absolutely.
just, advertising yourself more generally.
But here's a fundamental problem, and I don't mean to shoehorn the Israel-Gaza discussion into every conversation, but it really is the motivating impetus for so much of how people are coming to their political views in this election season. When I look through the comments of news about this interview that we just showed with libertarian accounts, the Libertarian Party, other kind of sub-Libertarian Party groups weighing in on Twitter, a lot of people will bring up the fact that RFK Jr. supports genocide. RFK Jr. is a staunch Zionist. RFK Jr. is completely hypocritical when it comes to the issue of Israel-Gaza. And what does that mean for the Libertarian Party to choose as its candidate or to get behind someone who's so obviously, flagrantly disregarding such a core value of the party? I just don't know if they're going to be able to make that fit.
Well, and to be clear, it's not just up to the chair to decide. The Libertarian Party goes through a nominating process that I don't know all the details of. My colleagues at Reason who cover the Libertarian Party are far more knowledgeable about it. But he would have to go up against. There are other people pursuing the nomination, and he would have to win support from. I believe it's a delegate system that the Libertarian Party uses. So he's not going to just automatically be given it. And you're right that from a libertarian standpoint, both his foreign policy and his Israel position, and then also some of the other things you mentioned, including his support for student loan debt forgiveness and history of environmental law and
regulations.
Guns. Yeah, he is. By no means is he a perfect fit for the Libertarian Party, but that said, there is some enthusiasm for him among some of its leadership, and remains to be seen. It is appealing. Look, they had a lot of Libertarian Party members felt that it was the 2012 and the 2016 candidate, Gary Johnson, who's a former Republican governor of New Mexico. His vice president was Bill Weld, former Republican governor of Massachusetts. But almost a former Republican of a very, I would say, kind of never Trump ideology type. There were a lot of Libertarian members who felt that those two were not nearly libertarian enough. Almost, despite both of them being Republicans, that they were too liberal or almost too progressive to be too reflexively anti-Trump in like an MSNBC kind of way that really grated a lot of Libertarian Party membership.
Sure, but that's not an ideological. Even that,
I'm just saying it is nothing new for many Libertarian parties to be sucking up and putting up with it.
If libertarians happen to like Trump and they don't like a candidate that has been too hard on Trump, that's like vibes. But being a libertarian and having someone ideologically who supports big government with respect to environmental policy and with interventionism, that's a huge. Rank-and-file libertarians inconsistency.
Rank-and-file libertarians said it was that ideologically Bill Weld supports big government and Gary Johnson supports big government. It was very.
Did they?
It was their. I'm not going to say who's right or who's wrong. It was their perspective.
I don't know, man.
I found the candidates underwhelming. I didn't think Gary Johnson did a great job campaigning. He had several notable. The most attention he got was the "What is Aleppo" thing. Remember that?
Right, of course.
So that was not great. I thought he was not a super effective communicator on our behalf. I like now the 2020 candidate, Jo Jorgensen. I was perfectly libertarian. I thought she was great. She had no name recognition whatsoever. So that's the trade-off. Gary Johnson at least had some name recognition because he had been elected at the national level. Would you rather have someone who is in the conversation because they know them, even though they're not perfect from a libertarian standpoint? Or do you want someone who's
just doing a lot of work?
Well, we had someone perfect last time, and they didn't get as much attention.
Has wildly undermined core values of the Libertarian Party.
I mean, that's for them to decide.
It would be nice if any number of famous people could lend their name to the Green Party ballot line, but the Green Party can never host someone that was a warmonger, can never host someone that didn't respect Palestinian self-determination, can never host anybody that didn't support the right of health care in the United States of America. Otherwise, what does it even mean to win?
Yeah, I mean, that's the decision for the Libertarians to work out. I'm one of them, and I get to have as much say as anyone else, but we'll see how that goes. More Rising right after this.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet.
Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment.
So what is your judgment? What did you make of the President of the United States defending his competence to be President of the United States? Interested parties are weighing in. No more interested party than independent presidential candidate to clear something up. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is a lifelong Democrat. The party would not let him run, so he's running as an independent, and he joins us now. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too, Chris. Thanks for having me.
So thank you for accepting the spontaneous invitation. Straight question. Do you believe that Joe Biden is fit to be president of the United States?
Well, I think we've reached a time where it's no longer character assassination to ask legitimate questions about his competency. There's so many subtleties, as you know, Chris. You came from a family that was in government. There are so many decisions that require nuance, that require complex levels of thinking, and that those kind of issues are coming at you many times a day. Do we, and the American people have a right to understand whether their president is capable of making those decisions. There are entrenched interests and special interests in government that actually benefit from having a president who is not completely competent. Their power increases as a president's cognitive power decreases. So I think it's really important for the president to, I'm glad that he stood up there and answered these questions today. I think he needs to participate in the debate so that everybody can judge it. I don't think either in the Trump case or the President Biden's case that a court or the Justice Department ought to be able to make those decisions about his competency. But I think that is a choice for the American people, and that the president should respect the American people and respect our stature around the world by coming out and having a vigorous debate about this and other issues.
Just to put a button on it, and then I want to play you another piece of sound from the press conference. Is your feeling about his ability to handle the job one of the reasons that you're running?
Well, I have larger reasons to run other than that, because I don't think the choices that are being made are good choices for our country. I think we've become untethered from some of our values. I think the Democratic Party has become the party of war. It's become the party of censorship. It's become a party that is now at war with its traditional constituency, which is the American working class, the American middle class. So those are the concerns that really drove me to make this decision. But I think, my complaint about what's happening in the White House, Chris, is that it's become the sock puppet for these large industries, the big hedge funds and the BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, who give equally to the Republican and Democratic Party and now just are comfortable calling the shots. And I think we need to put we need to have a president who is able to make judgments, and particularly the judgment about war. He may receive a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and your children's lives are at stake in that phone call, and my children's lives, the lives of every kid in this country. And we want to make sure that the person who's answering that call has a subtlety and a flexibility of mind to make the best decision possible for our people.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.